Thanks for staying with us at STL Live. I'm Sarah Thompson, and my guest is Brian Woodman, curator of the St. Louis International Film Festival and co-producer of The Experimental City, which will be shown at the festival. And this is a great segue. So you not only curate, or one of the curators for the film festival, but you have your own film that's going to be screened, what's the date, November 12th. So tell me about The Experimental City.
Well, it's a second film I've worked with director Chad Fredericks and his wife Jamie Fredericks, who's a co-producer. Our previous film was The Pruitt-Igoe Myth, which dealt a lot with issues of St. Louis. We used a lot of archival material from archives around St. Louis. We're very interested in lots of issues about cities, and so this film, The Experimental City, is sort of a switch. Although it deals with some of the same issues of what you can use design for and how big structures can help determine policy, determine the ways that we live. But this film is a little different in that it's a lot lighter in tone. The idea is that it's about a man named Athelstan Spilhaus who had this grand vision that he thought that he could, with a team of people, make a city that was purely an experiment, where you could sort of change the parts as people lived there to try to see how you could help them live better. So the idea was, like back in the 60s, to make a place that was sustainable, that was going to outlaw cars and have dual mode guideways instead. It was going to deal with, he was already predicting issues with climate change, and he had ways of dealing with that through recycling other issues. He believed that there's no such thing as waste. It's just something, waste is just something you haven't figured out how to use yet.
Yeah, and now here we are, and that would have been helpful, I think, years back. Well, I don't want to ruin too much. We've got a clip, and we're going to take a look at it.
Yeah, sure.
So let's take a look.
The Minnesota Experimental City is the brainchild of Athelstan Spilhaus, Dean of the Institute of Technology at the University of Minnesota.
He's a mighty intellect, a futurist, and I can assure you is a most unusual person.
Are you offended by being called a 20th century Da Vinci?
I don't like the A, the.
Yes.
He found that new technologies couldn't be tested in old cities. He conceived of the Experimental City as a laboratory for urban technology.
An engineer should not merely sit back and predict the inevitable result of carrying on present practices. He should design the future.
He definitely felt it would work. It's not like, some crazy off-the-wall spaceship kind of thing.
The essence of an experimental city is that it be continually changing, because in experiment you must make mistakes so that you can learn from them and change them.
And at least as titles are concerned, highlighting the fact that this is experimental and that the sort of people are guinea pigs and may have a political backfiring.
The word experimental, it did tend to scare people.
Good evening, my fellow Americans.
We haven't been too successful in getting people to agree. And if we're going to really build this city, you got to get the land.
But those surrounding the proposed city site seem to oppose the concept of a new city.
We have people in rural Minnesota that are capable of thinking for themselves and governing themselves.
Their reason, destruction of the environment.
It was the question of having people that you were in the same environmental groups with now questioning your sanity.
We were striking out into a great world of technology, and that's the picture that got across better than anything else, that this world was coming.
Now, if what I say seem like dreams to some of you, I remind you that you and I have had dreams and seen them rapidly become reality.
His life became a whirlwind of activity and adventure. Never was he still for a moment.
It's going to make a hell of a movie script.
Can you imagine?